And I'm a director of the Zeroth Studio, in which we do interaction design research and urban installations. And today I will talk about some interactive urban projects that we've done, which really deal with physical engagement and tangible interactions. The title is really a question, and it asks how can we question and put in motion established relations, powers, and ecologies on which our behavior in the city heavily relies on. Before moving into this question, I'd like to give you a little bit of roots of this idea of transformation in my work. My background is in architecture, and I looked at or explored how digital tools may transform urban space or the design of urban space. And this project tried to address some urban problematics through parametric design. The idea was that new architectural forms can actually affect the relations between people in the city. However, once these forms are built, they become frozen structures, and the traces of the movement really remain there only as a sculptural monument. So I kind of realized that transforming people relations is not really about transforming architectural forms. It is about how these forms are used. While architectural practice, this was in the 90s, was really fascinated with this design of soft on-screen system, the public sphere was as well moving into more networked and digital cyber domains. As well, new services were really accessible to people through to their own homes. And my mentor at the time in architecture, he did this interesting project called the Terminal City, where he was commenting on this issue through the design of the city, which only consisted of homes with big graves. So the home was your own grave. You never had to leave the home. And in this picture, well, the question was, why would we ever use the physical public space again? Why would we ever go back out into the city? And this is when I kind of came back to the real world and start working really with the physical world, and realized that the essence of the public space is really to meet the others. And once that, in addition to all these kind of functional activities that we have, which are institutional, commercial, representative uses of public space, there are other non-functional and non-task-based activities such as contemplation, exploration, and play that we do and can do together in public space. So today I will talk about some projects which really try to create sites for such activities, so non-task-oriented activities. And they try to engage passers-by in direct and physical interaction with each other and with their environment. What morphs here are not anymore digital forms, but human movements and behaviors, and the social and sensorial ecologies of urban space. So just some aspects of physical interaction which I think are interesting. Well, first of all, the idea of presence. Here I'm talking not about remote presence, but presence, the attention to here and now, and the fact that it is inevitable to encounter the others, the fact that proximity brings us in direct contact with the world. Then the idea of awareness, that once we are confronted with issues through tangible or physical experience, we draw conclusions through action, and contention becomes more tangible. Another point is the participation, so the fact that individual roles in collective actions become more obvious, and this really looks also at these ideas of radical democracy, in which the public space it describes as the space of tension, so the space where we go out to confront others and to critically explore our relations to other kinds of identities in the space. Another point is empowerment, so trying to bring back the appropriation of the public space to passers-by. So trying to engage in transformation of the urban matter. I'll talk more about that later. And then the last thing is the play. So play as a strategy for challenging identities, for exploring things, which I think really works well. People manage to loosen up and really explore things that they otherwise wouldn't. So I think there are aspects of interaction and of interfaces which make this kind of playful experiences and explorative experiences possible. And one of this is the fact that when things are unfamiliar, they might afford or might open more possibilities for construction of meanings and of new behaviors. So the aim of things that I'm trying to build is really to afford kind of unfamiliar but intuitive interaction. So if things are unfamiliar, it doesn't mean that they cannot be intuitive. They can afford movements that we know, but maybe in a different context or in different way. I will talk about 3 projects, and the first one is really an attempt to create a kind of recycled metabolic space. It is called the Recycled Soundscapes, and it empowers citizens to transform the existing urban soundscape and to engage them in new ways of listening. So it is an interactive system which is composed of these 3 kinetic human-scale objects. The sonic bowls are the smaller ones, and the beludire, which comes from beautiful listening, is the bigger one. And the soundscape is composed by interaction with these 2 smaller sculptures. When they are idle, they invite passersby to play. They make little sounds. And if one person is using the interface, the sound is very resonating and relaxing. The reflective parabolic surface sonically and acoustically collects the urban context, and the spinning of it creates a kind of audio-visual mandala of the surroundings. When more bowls are in use, a more rhythmical and playful patterns emerge, and finally the memory of the place comes into the soundscape. The memory of the place is captured through beludire, through this kind of interface which can rotate, so you can follow the sounds, you can follow transient sounds and record them, and because of its parabolic shape, the sounds feel very close and very intimate. Paradoxically, the person who is behind this kind of listening spying post is really put into visual attention of people because he's behind this big red box. I mean, I think this brings a bit, it kind of excorporates from, through this sculpture, the idea of the problematics related to the privacy in urban space. Yeah, so beludire really uses microphone as something which is not a performative tool, but rather a listening tool. And the attention is directed towards the others rather than to reaffirming and using the microphone as a kind of statement instrument. Okay, I'll just play some videos. Hopefully. Well, there's an old lady which doesn't work. But yeah, you can see a little bit of what people are doing. There is a lot of discovering, a lot of exploring, meaning making. What are these things for? What do they do here? Why is my voice in this box, and so on. The project was exhibited in different places for 3 to 7 weeks, and really how I think it works is as a kind of disturbance field, which is inserted into existing social and sensorial structures, and then it starts to affect them. And it has all these different kind of behaviors. So, for example, at the top, somebody when people are spying on some people would feel attracted and come and play with them. In other cases, people would be repulsed. So it really works as a kind of centripetal and centrifugal systems depending on individual people. The uses are as well diverse. They can be used as a more contemplative kind of tool, as on your right, or a more playful instrument. And this idea of metabolic system, of reusing and reappropriating which is already there, which is not a system that is automatic, but is a system that is used by the people. So it really comes into existence through the users. I think it's very important for me because I think that it manages to bring this idea of reappropriation. So things that are out there, all this sonic kind of data that are floating, people are capable of taking them and making something else out of them. And here you can see the family playing. And one thing that this girl does a bit later is she realizes that she can record herself playing. So she kind of turns the this recording and starts making loops. So she's recording herself playing, and then so it's really, for me, it's interesting how all these surprising things come out, and the creativity is really not limited by the systems, but it's open. Okay, the second project I'll talk about is called Contact, and the idea is to create a kind of latent seed space, space in which there are conditions placed in an environment, and they are capable of creating events. In this case, it is a set of tactile fields. So the project explores our tactile public behavior. How do we negotiate touch in public space, and what does it take to touch a stranger in public space or a strange artifact? So the touch is an interface, and it activates sound and light in response of the environment. There are spots in the space which are marked with colors or different kinds of material, and these active spots are connected through human chains in order to provoke the reaction of the space. Often these spots are placed in very difficult points, so in order to invite people to explore the space. It is impossible to create contact alone. So really to have a response from the environment, the body has to be collective. The possibilities are totally latent until that happens. This thing about how much, well, in this case you can modulate the response of the environment by adding different kind of materials into human chain. For example, here is a metal stick, so depending on what organic and inorganic things are composed in this human non-human chain, the environment will change. But also it will change if people change their experience. So for example, if people start touching differently, or if people start kissing, the environment will respond in a different way. So yeah, this idea of setting up the conditions for something to happen and leaving the design open or underspecified, as Omar described yesterday, is very important. But how unpredictable these systems we want to be? How much do we want to design them? And I'll just throw here a little quote from Pip Quetglas, which is a kind of extreme vision, where he says that planning is a shifting to the future of what is being done now, and then to plan is to deny action and the present their interest and reality. And the last thing I'll talk about is a project called Skyhooks, and I'll address these issues of non-representational and performative space here. Skyhooks is a set of invisible sounding objects which are distributed through the sky. The sounding objects appear as passers-by move and disturb them with a balloon interface. They may explore this soundscape by touching the helmets to their head, or by using the floating hammers. Walking or biking, running or jumping, different kind of movements produce different kind of sounds, which also depends on the speed of the movement and the location of the people. Of course, more unexpected uses come to life. This is almost my last slide, so I hope I'm on time. This idea of non-representational space, urban space, I'd like to talk about. So the idea that interactivity can open new uses of urban environment and non-representational, the space in which we question ourselves through action and relation to others, rather than the space in which we display it and state who we are. So while representational use of city reinforces established differences and values, the more playful participation may challenge and question identities and behavioral structures. And I'll close with this quote from the last book by Deleuze and Guattari. It may be that believing in this world, in this life, becomes our most difficult task, or the task or mode of existence still to be discovered on our plane of immanence today. So I believe that we are still working on this task. Thank you.